Update on the farm. Unfortunately, the heater and system I have in this germination greenhouse, which is where most of my plants are, like my microgreens, hydrangea starts, rhodie starts, all that stuff, they didn't do too well in the cold. I'm looking at about an 85% loss rate. We'll see how the rhodies and the hydrangeas do in the springtime, but yeah, things got way too cold in there, and I just don't have the money to afford the power bill to get big industrial heaters in there, and I kind of don't like that idea of, you know, consuming mass amounts of electricity. That's why I'm trying to come up with an off-grid kind of, compost heating system. It's still in the works. So a little disappointed in that. Gonna, keep trying, try again soon. And come springtime, luckily, we're coming up into, well, it's mid-January now, so cold season should be done in about a month and a half, and then I can start doing my, produce starts and all that stuff from there. So, little bit disappointed in that, but it's also, I kind of knew it was gonna come. When it gets down to the teens, multiple days and nights in a row, it's, what are you gonna do? You can't fight Mother Nature. So we'll do an overview on some of the equipment I use here on the farm. This is a 3-point PTO powered auger. PTO shaft there connects to the tractor. These points here connect to the 3-point harnesses on the tractor. And yeah, it comes with I got a 12-inch bit or a 8-inch diameter bit. And we mainly use this for, digging out post holes for the shop, or digging corner post holes for the cattle fence we put in. This is one of those things where I bought it just because I didn't want to rent one, because I found this for cheap on Craigslist. It was like $400, and these go for $600 to $700 new. I got my use out of it, so now I'm gonna try to flip it and make a little bit of money off of it. These are one of the tools that are just kind of good to have around in general, if you do a lot of construction work and stuff on your own shop. For this case, yeah, I just bought it for what I needed it for, and then now it just sits, so might as well sell it before it rots away. This baby is probably one of the most important pieces of equipment we have. This is a 16-inch 2-bottom moldboard plow. I have a 3rd bottom over there that I can attach if I need to, but I do not have the horsepower for that. We're pretty much maxing out the Ford 860 pulling this. I have hooked this up to the Kubota and pulled it and put a bunch of weight in the bucket up front. I used 60-pound concrete bags, and it surprised, for 21 horsepower, I was very, very surprised. 4-wheel drive helped, all that, and Kubota was pushing it, and I got the front wheels off the ground a couple of times, even with 200 pounds of weight up front, 240 pounds. But this is what gets your your garden area or your field or whatever ready for the cultivator and the tiller and all that good stuff. You can also use what's called a ripper, where it's got the hooked arms that go down in the soil, and it goes forward and it rips the soil. But this is what came with our Ford 860 tractor, so this is what I use. It does a really good job. Basically, this front edge cuts down into the soil. This is 16-inch moldboard, so it cuts down at 16 inches, the max height, and it runs the soil up the side of these. You can kind of see how they're angled and tilted there. So it basically runs the soil up the sides of these, and it turns it over. So the grass and debris on the top now becomes the bottom. So it allows you to break up the soil, break up the root zone, get oxygen down there, and then when you come through and till and cultivate, you have an easier stand of ground to work on. This is by far one of the most important pieces of equipment we have. It does a great job. There's really nothing to break. I mean, if you hit a rock or get snagged on something, you might bend it. Maintenance is very low. I come through and I kind of resurface and sharpen the edges. It's not razor sharp. It's kind of like a mower edge where it's kind of blunt. We also have a couple more sets of these little discs here. These just help kind of cut the ground up before the plow hits. It makes it, easier for the edge of the plow to kind of slip down into the dirt. and then peel it up and fold it over. This guy right here is one of the more important pieces of equipment you can have on your farm. This is a disc harrow or cultivator, disc cultivator. It's got a lot of different names, but they all mean the same thing. It uses discs at opposing angles to break up the dirt, break up the ground, and get a nice, fine seed bed. You would use this after you go through and plow. A lot of the bigger equipment, they have it's called a roller packer on the back, so it kind of rolls over the dirt, helps pack it down depending on the soil type you have, and then it helps break up the chunks into even finer pieces. This guy does okay. You have to make a couple passes at it in order to get it to really break up this clay soil we have up here. And it also works best if you have hydraulics on your 3-point that have downforce on them, so it forces the machine in the ground. This, you kind of have to go a little bit slower to let it kind of dig in and cut, and then on that second pass you can go a little bit faster, and that helps chop things up a little bit better and get ready for planting. This guy right here is your basic rotor tiller. Once again, fits on the 3-point on the back of the tractor, has that PTO shaft there that is powered by the tractor, and this particular one's 48-inch wide. And yeah, it's like your basic garden rototiller but bigger. This thing, it can be used in place of the cultivator if you have the right soil type for it. Up here, I generally hit it with the 2-bottom plow first, kind of really dig deep and rip up the soil, and then I'll come through with the cultivator, or let the plowed field sit for a while and kind of settle, and then I'll come through and hit it with this guy. It's a good method for getting a nice, fine, clean seed bed for your plants and seeds to be planted in, but this thing is very, 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 very slow when you're operating it. You're moving at 0.5 to 0.8 miles an hour, maybe a little bit faster if you're lucky, depending on how dense the soil is. Like I said before, we got clay up here, so it's pretty thick. So it's very slow going with this, but it does a good job of getting your rooting zone and seed bed tilled up. It is a more shallow till than the cultivator. The cultivator digs down a couple inches deeper, but for small areas and doing, if you're putting in an orchard or something and just need to till up strips or whatever, this guy does a pretty good job of just getting a really nice fine soil bed. Makes it easier for your plants to germinate and all that, and helps with water drainage and nutrient retention and all that good stuff. This here is my 50-gallon poly tank sprayer. Sometimes they come with a metal tank. I went with the plastic tank because they're a little cheaper and easier to clean. They don't rust out as bad, but they do get some UV wear and fade on it. This one, I got it with the frame and the tank and the motor and tubing and all that for $500 on Craigslist. My buddy Dylan, he fabbed up this sick little 8-foot boom here, and then I'm running T-Jet. I believe they're 130001. They're the blue tips, and that gives me, at the right height that I have it set at, it gives me a 10-foot spray swath. This is useful. I use it so real quick, cool feature, you can shut off one side or the other with these little red knobs right there. So that's where I use it for if I'm driving down the driveway and spraying the edges. I can turn off one side and only run the left or the right side depending on the direction I'm traveling, and that allows me to only spray chemical where I want to spray chemical. I'm not just dumping it all over the road, wasting money and time and all that stuff, because last time I checked, the pasture spray I get, it's a target spray for like clover and thistle and all that good stuff. That was, I believe, $160 a gallon, and then I just buy the off-brand of Roundup. It's still glyphosate, but it's just not the Roundup name brand, and that was $129.99 for 1 gallon. So, you know, it's saving every single penny you can really helps when it comes to this stuff. This one, instead of your conventional PTO powered, you know, rig, this one runs off of a connector there that connects to that, 2 alligator clips with a switch, and that connects to the tractor battery and then runs past the operator seat where I can flip the switch on and off on command. And then it uses this electric pump down here to force the spray through each of these little nozzles on the boom. It's really a simple system. You know, inlets at the bottom, comes through, filter system, motor pushes it through, you get your PSI reading there on the gauge. When I'm spraying at, you know, full spray, both booms on, manage about 40 PSI. It's 35 to 40 PSI. And then if I shut one side off, that'll jump up to about 45 or 50 PSI. One tank, I mean, I can do our whole half-mile driveway on, I mean, half a tank is what I used. I only put 25 gallons in it last time, and I still even had a little bit left over, so I went and did some touch-up spots in the woods there. It's nice having booms this small because I can kind of weave in between the trees a little bit better and kind of get the forest floor cleaned up. I try to spray as little as possible, just because, you know, I just don't want to waste money in chemical unless I really have to, especially when, you know, fall and winter time in Oregon. That'll usually kill off most of the stuff that needs killed off, and then you just come through and you till it up with something like the cultivator or the plow or the tiller, and that usually, you know, kills everything off. And another important piece of equipment is going to be some type of mower. There's all kinds of mowers out there. You can get flail mowers, rotary mowers, there's folding rotary mowers, there's, you know, single, double, triple, quadruple dish mowers. There's all sorts of things you can get, but as long as it cuts grass and eats brush, that's one of the most important pieces you can have. I use this for clearing blackberries, clearing tall grass, cutting pasture. I mean, if it needs mowed or needs chopped down, 9 times out of 10, this guy's gonna get the job done. This is a John Deere 403 rotary cutter. So it's a 4-foot wide single, it's got a single dish underneath there. And the blades, they pivot. So the center of this spins around, it's a dish on a circle, and on the edges sit the blades. And the blades are underneath so they can rotate 360 degrees individually. So what that does is if you're mowing along, you know, centrifugal force is going to force the blades out straight. And so you'll have, you know, what looks like your normal lawnmower blade or whatever. But if you're going along and you hit a stump or a rock or whatever it may be, that pivot point on each individual blades allows it hits the object and then flies backwards out of the way. So you never end up having a straight solid blade hit, you know, whatever object that you don't want to hit. You know, it'll it's a kind of a makeshift breakaway system. It also has a shear bolt on this side of the PTO shaft here. I have had to replace those a couple times just because there's some things like I was mowing for a guy and he had a bundle of fence underneath a blackberry pile. So I'm just powering through it and this thing starts, you know, shaking, and then it just stops. And I thought I blew up the transmission. Nope, lo and behold, this part of the PTO shaft was spinning like no other, and this part right here was standing still. That bolt right there, nowhere to be seen. Shear bolt is a bolt that's meant to shear at a certain point in pressure, so if you get too much tension built up on that point, the bolt will snap instead of snapping, you know, a drive shaft or your gearbox or stripping gears or whatever it may be that's not so good for the application. This is another PTO driven implement. This is a 540, so 540 RPM speed. There's, you know, different speeds for your PTO shafts. Like this Kubota right here, it runs a 540 speed or a 960, I believe is the other one. Your 960, that's going to be more used for, like, you know, if you're running a hydraulic pump or if you're running, you know, if you have a well pump that you're powering off of this, or a generator or a welder, whatever it may be, where you need more RPMs to kind of get stuff moving and flowing, that's where the 960 comes into place. But your 540, that's going to be your main PTO speed. So it's 540 revolutions per minute at the set working speed on your proof meter or RPM gauge or whatever kind of gauge your tractor has. I also have a scraper blade. I'm not going to walk down there and show it because it's really pouring down rain, and as you could see from the spray tank part of the video, my camera just started freaking out and zooming in and out because it doesn't like the water on the touchscreen. So yeah, I have a scraper blade with adjustable angles on it, and that comes in handy for everything. I use it for spreading gravel, moving dirt, leveling ground. I used it for plowing snow off the driveway. It took me, you know, one pass on each side. I believe it's a 4-foot blade. It might be a 5-foot. I'll have to double check. But 2 passes, one side, the other side, and the road was clear of snow and ice. Once again, one issue with that though is in order to really make it work well with something that small and that light, you need to have weight or downforce hydraulics on your tractor. That way it can really kind of cut into the ground, and then when you back over it and use, you know, the other side of the blade, the back side, that kind of helps smooth things out and make a nice little path to walk on, or a nice spot to you know, spread concrete or whatever it may be. And on the subject of the scraper blade, this is why I like using the Ford tractor specifically for like grading the road and whatnot, because I can set my angle manually using this guy right here. So I, you know, depending on which direction you go, like this way, that's gonna raise up this side, and then if I do it this way, it's gonna lower this side and raise up the other side. So it gives you a little bit more control on the fly, whereas on the Kubota, if we come to the back of this, the gimbal started freaking out because of the rain too. So pardon the shaky camera work. This one, it's a jam nut, and then you have to like twist this thing, and you can't do it from the operator's seat. So if there's, you know, it makes it difficult for doing quick adjustments on the fly. So I do like using the old Ford to do, you know, kind of just grading work or getting the road prepped or whatever it may be. I like using that better. The Kubota is great because it has the bucket on the front. This is another piece of equipment that's pretty important to have. But yeah, if it can get scooped up, it can be moved by this thing. It also does a great job of kind of scraping and grading and compressing the gravel. You can use, you know, the edge of the bucket down here to kind of dig in and get a nice kind of flat layer of gravel, or if you want to do a thicker layer yet compact it, you can use the bottom side of the bucket, or even this edge right here. It's just a very versatile attachment on the front of the tractor. This particular piece is hydraulic powered, so you can see the hydraulic lines coming here, and then you have this stick with all your remotes attached to it. And you know, you have your up, down, and then you have the tilt of the actual bucket on the front. So if you want to dump or pick up or whatever it may be, you go from left to right. If you want to raise and lower, you go up and down. The bucket is probably my favorite piece of equipment I have, just because it's so versatile. You know, we're doing that shop project down there, and so I would use the front of the bucket to kind of scoop and lift and pick up and move dirt that my brother had piled up with the excavator. And then I'd also had the blade attached on the back of this thing, so I could kind of push whatever I need to out of the way, get it into a pile, and then I could come in and scoop everything up with this. So it kind of, you know, it's not exactly a loader, but it kind of functions as one if you have the right equipment and if you have the right skills to do so. And yeah, that's gonna do it. That's kind of an overview of the equipment I have and I use. It's not much, trying to grow it, you know, year by year and get bigger and better equipment. I am thankful for what I have. It's definitely getting the job done, but you know, you can always do better. You can always get bigger equipment to do it faster and more efficiently. Right now I'm I kind of don't have a reason to get bigger equipment yet, just because, like I mentioned before, I've had about an 85% loss rate in my greenhouse so far. So I don't know what I'm gonna do. I mean, I'm not giving up yet. I'm gonna keep trying, but I just gotta wait for better weather, or like I said, somehow find part-time work or something to help subsidize the power bill and kind of allow me to have some more freedom to experiment a little more on different projects. I am still working on that greenhouse heater. It's a little hard to kind of get that going with all this rain and nasty weather we've had. So yeah, that might be more of a springtime project. We'll see. But yeah, other than that, since there's not much to do, I'm gonna start doing more tractor videos, just, you know, doing comparisons and overviews, and kind of get people some more information on what might fit for their situation, or the type of agriculture they're doing. So until next time.